Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. This limited release show features the stories of the 2020 contestants of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's athletic competition, NBC's The Titan Games. Now, here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 14 of the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. In the KMF Collective Studio with me today, I have Titan Games athlete, security officer, trans athlete, and former professional basketball player, Mitch Harrison. How are you doing, Mitch?
Doing awesome. How are you, Katie?
I am doing great, too. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for having me. I mean, this is such an honor. Actually, I felt like I should share this is my first podcast to ever participate in. So
oh my gosh. Oh, that makes me so happy.
It's great. This is awesome in so many different ways. So I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, Mitch, I'm excited. I love that. Really is honestly one of my favorite things because it's one, of course, it's exciting. It's your first podcast, but the honor that you would let me be the first podcast person to interview you, that makes me really excited. So thank you really for being a guest and sharing your story. That's
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Mitch, just to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit and know your background, I wonder, where did you grow up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
Yeah, so I actually grew up just out of Salt Lake City, Utah, and pretty much sports and athletics were a given for me. My family was very, very sports, just very active in sports. My older siblings all played sports. My sister actually was like my hero growing up. She played high school and junior college basketball, and then also took me under her wing pretty much right out the get-go when I was very young to teach me basketball fundamentals and skill sets. And growing up, I played a lot of different sports, but I started to hone in into basketball pretty early. So it was kind of a given. I don't know if I really even had much of a choice, but I definitely don't complain because basketball has certainly been like I always call it my first true love. So yeah, the sports has been there, right out the get-go.
Yeah, and I mean, one, to have such an, like you said, your sister being such an influential presence for you and helping you discover basketball, find that passion for yourself. But then two, like you said, it was your first true love. You love that sport and so wanted to see how far you could take it. And so then, Mitch, for you, when did you decide, or when did you set the goal that you wanted to continue on your basketball career and see how far that you could go into the college level and then eventually the professional level?
Oh yeah, that happened pretty early on as well. It really took no convincing for me to not only fall in love with basketball, but want to be great at it. My idol growing up was Michael Jordan, so this is all kind of ironic as well to have that documentary out about the same time this is all going on, which has been fun to watch. But then, just kind of deciding in my mind at a very young age that I wanted to be the best at my craft, and mostly because I loved it. And then I was also very competitive. So, and then it, of course, pretty early on as well, I was a standout athlete. So, when I was younger, so like grade school age, I was actually the only female playing on Super League boys teams.
Wow.
And that shaped a lot, obviously, in how I played, my confidence level, my athleticism. And there's definitely a lot of people out there in the sports world, particularly basketball, that know, especially for female players, that to really kind of to push their level is to play with boys, just, for that sense of gaining competitiveness, that competitive edge.
Yeah.
And so that played a huge role. I really didn't start playing with all girls teams till about high school, actually. So
wow.
I think it was, so I mean, playing high school was kind of like one of my first tastes at playing on all girls teams. And my freshman year of high school, I mean, I was a starter. I was an all-state athlete my freshman year. By my sophomore year, I was state MVP. So, I mean, things started, the accolades and the recognition started to come pretty quickly. So that tied into, all my long-term goals as well as, playing college, playing professionally. I mean, I had dreams from an early age, but when it started when those accolades started to come in, then I started to believe even more so, like, okay, I can be great. I can be a real household name if I want to be. And it never took, no one ever had to push me. Like, I was always one of, like, the hardest worker. I was always, the player in the gym, but I was by myself, shooting all the time, practicing all the time. Like, that was just my natural love for the game,
Yeah.
and just being that competitive athlete. So and that just kind of all fell into the timeline of becoming an All-American in high school, being heavily recruited, which led to signing with Stanford. And then in the mix of all that, I unfortunately suffered through a lot of major injuries. So although I did get to play at Stanford, we went to 3 Final Fours, played in 2 national championship games, and afterwards I did eventually get to play professionally overseas. I still have been plagued with injury, so I never really felt like I got to become that full potential of a player that I could have been. But at the end of the day, I'm always proud of looking back at my career and what I was able to accomplish.
Absolutely. And of course, you should be. I mean, having accomplished so much, setting your sights on something, but then too, I love what you said. Like, you were able to be in the gym and it never felt like work. You just loved the sport of basketball so much, and you gave it your all, and it gave everything back to you too. I mean, you were able to take that sport as far as you could. But then Mitch, coming up on, then, like you said, you did go overseas, were able to play pro, but being plagued with injuries, it kind of, you said, it never really led to that, maybe that full potential, or lived up to what you wanted it to be. And so coming off of the back end of that, how did you navigate that transition from having your basketball career come to a close into the next phase of your life?
That's a great question. And I love it too, because it's something where, in retrospect, after everything, is kind of said and done, I believe it's actually one of the biggest blessings that has come into my life, because obviously at the time, and going through the injuries, going through, just the enormous amounts of physical therapy and rehab, and trying to get back, trying to become the player not only that I was before, but trying to get better, and always continuing to kind of find myself hitting these roadblocks of injury.
Yeah.
In those moments, during those times, it was like, it was so difficult, because I think mostly because, I really didn't identify myself much more beyond being a basketball player. It was my life. It was everything. It was what I invested everything into. And so to lose that, not only was it just heartbreaking in itself, because I loved to play, it was also like, well, who am I without basketball?
Yep.
And it was really my only dream that I ever had. And afterward, it took a long time, because once I finally had to hang it up, I was very grateful, like immensely grateful, that I at least got the chance to play overseas for a little bit and taste that experience. But once I was pretty much forced to hang it up, it took me a long time to kind of sit back and just really process the emotion of, who am I without basketball? And really, not only do I feel like I've learned just how much of a blessing it was, in terms of, wow, I really am so much more than just a basketball player.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, really stepping away from basketball was what allowed me to explore my gender transition. If I had really kind of kept to pushing my resources in terms of getting healthy, which probably my chances were really slim. And then also to keep playing, because obviously once you have injuries, it's hard to get picked up.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only that, but it was, if I pushed through that, obviously I wouldn't be able to transition. Even though I had always struggled with that, like that deep inner emotional struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And so it allowed for that to surface, and to explore that, and to realize, wow, if I had really just stuck with basketball, like if that's really all I cared about, and really try to enforce in my life, I really wouldn't have explored the avenue of transitioning, which at the end of the day, this is beyond any, I would never, of course, would never trade it. This is the happiness and that life fulfillment that I think I've always been seeking, but didn't realize it at the time. So So yeah, I mean, at the time it was extremely difficult, and I miss basketball every day because at this point, I have pretty severe osteoarthritis. I can't do the things that I used to do, so it's
Wow.
still difficult in those aspects. But I wouldn't trade it for anything because the lessons I've learned and who I've become because of those things, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Absolutely. And I mean, I love that you can, of course, reflect back and be so grateful for the time that you had. But then, too, in another turn, being so grateful because in the midst of that desperation and sadness, because you didn't know who you were without basketball, it allowed you to process emotions in a different way. And I mean, make another transition in your life, in a different realm, but still kind of open your eyes to that. And so, Mitch, in the midst of that, when you were coming off of finishing basketball and having that career kind of prematurely end, but then shifting your eyes to your gender transition. How did that come about? How did you, I guess, kind of in the midst of the sadness of losing your athlete identity, how did this come out of that?
Yeah, it's another great question. Interestingly enough, it kind of came, it was a slow process actually. And I think there's actually a lot of trans people there that might attest to a similar experience where like we don't really even know what it means or even
Yeah.
that it's possible. And I had seen tidbits here and there of people actually going through a gender transition, but I never actually knew what it entailed. And I had always thought in the back of my mind, like, man, that would be so great to do. But for the longest time, I didn't even consider it. And it wasn't just for basketball, but a lot of family issues, growing up in a really religious home.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of, there's definitely a fear and a doubt there just to even allow yourself to consider that, even just in terms of existing within this in society, like, will you be embraced and accepted, or will you just continuously find that prejudice and criticism, just for wanting to be you, just be yourself. So it was a really slow process, but I ended up finding myself befriending some people who were trans and actually starting their transition. I started to just do some more research. And then I actually had moved to Colorado and was there for a few years. And from there, I actually found more LGBT resources because being in Utah, obviously, those were much more rare. And so Colorado was another great opportunity for me to explore that because they offered more resources. I started to actually go to counseling and seeing like counselors that were specialized in these areas, and then kind of introduced me as to, okay, well, if you want to transition, here's kind of how you go about it. And just more and more started to open my mind to it, started to realize, like, as it was surfacing, like, not only did I want to, but I felt like I just needed to. I was like, this is really important for my overall happiness, I feel, and I just don't think I can suppress it anymore. And I think probably one of the most critical pieces was actually meeting my now wife. When we first met, I hadn't started my transition and was kind of in that emotional state of turmoil, like back and forth. It's like there's something certainly drawing me to do this, but then I'm obviously going through a lot of conflict as well. And she was right from day one, was the person that was like, your happiness is most important, and I support you no matter what. Like, this is not going to change anything about how I feel about you, how I see you. I see this as, like, she was like, I think you need to do it because this is you. Like, this is you. You need to be true to yourself and honest about it, because even I can't see you any other way. And this is before I even started transitioning. So that was such a critical piece because I really didn't have much family support and was kind of trying to navigate it on my own. So a lot of different pieces started to come into play, and as they pieced together, it was like, okay, I really had that 100%, like 110% confidence that, yes, I'm going to do this, because it's a big decision. Regardless of how sure you are, you need to make sure that
Yeah, I
you
bet.
you're really sure, because obviously you can't take it back. So
Hmm.
and that was important to me. No matter how strongly I felt that, I wanted to make sure it was absolutely the right thing for me to do, the right decision. And
Right.
so as things pieced together, it became clear. And then finally it was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And it was like, I still remember the first day of starting hormone treatment, and from then on out, it's just like life has just gotten better and better. So
And then, I mean, to think back to, like you said, this is the happiest you've ever been. So making that big life shift, a huge literal transition in your life, to be who you are today and be this happy, like you said, and then reflecting back to kind of that pit and sadness in your previous transition when basketball came to a close. And it's just amazing to see that path. I mean, you rediscovered yourself, or you discovered really who was there in that sadness, and it was able to set you and propel you down this positive path.
Mm-hmm.
Man. And so Mitch, then coming off of that, and now after your basketball career came to a close, and then you choosing to go through this transition, how did becoming a security officer come into play? Was that your kind of your day job when you were pursuing basketball, or how did it come into play?
Yeah, it was one of those things that was not in my plans, but it kind of basically came about because once basketball ended for me, and I was in a pretty tough spot emotionally, as well as dealing with kind of that, I call it family drama. Mm-hmm. And I certainly don't, when I have to bring it up, because it is a part of the story, it's definitely not a means for me to try and to create more family drama.
Right.
If that makes sense. But it definitely is still an aspect of the story, but it really just came about because I was trying to find my way, and I needed to pay the bills, and I was trying not to be homeless, and it was just an easy job to get into. And I'm definitely, it in a way, this might sound maybe somewhat odd, but in a way, it kind of spoke to the masculine energy in me, being that protector. Like I've always kind of been appealed to work in that kind of way. Mm-hmm. And so it was just kind of easy to get into for me once basketball was over, to just kind of pay the bills. And I didn't mind it. I was able to get into it right away, and ended up being something that I didn't mind. It wasn't necessarily my dream job or dream career or anything that I had planned for, but ironically, as I've stuck with it, it's actually brought about like a whole realm of opportunities in itself. Security was actually a part of me getting out into here in Alaska. And then it's actually, I don't know, in so many different ways. So, I mean, it's hard to expand on all of them, but in so many ways in itself, it has blessed me. It's provided me with these opportunities. I'm like, wow, I guess in a way I was meant to be here. I was meant to explore this field and just let it be what it is. It's never something I planned for, but here it is. And man, I'm so grateful for everything that it's brought to me. So, I've just continued to stick with it, even as I explore different career paths or just other things that I want to do as well. But it's just one thing I'm like, it's done so much for me that I want to just stick with it one way or the other. So definitely nothing I ever planned for, but something that has blessed me tremendously in terms of the career path.
And it seems like that's kind of that's something that kind of happens. It's things where opportunities present themselves, or you start to walk down this path, and you see something, and it might never have ever been the thing you thought you would do or where you would end up. But taking that first step forward, that is what leads you down the path that you were meant to be on anyway, and it leads you to those successes.
Yep, absolutely.
So then, Mitch, speaking of that, seizing opportunities and walking down those paths, how did you find yourself to become a contestant on this season of the Titan Games?
Wow, to this day I'm still pinching myself. It's still, even now, it's still surreal. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. Well, I was contacted by one of the producers, and he felt that I think maybe in the back of his mind he was thinking that this kind of show was ready to introduce trans athletes. They need more exposure, they need more representation, and encouraged me to apply, which I did. And then luckily they liked my application, and just kind of as the process unfolded, because there's a lot that goes into it, but it was just like, yep, they like you, we're moving forward. Yep, they like you, we're moving forward. And then the opportunity to go to LA for the combine back in January, and was a bit nervous for that, just because mostly because of the fact that I'm not really that 100% healthy athlete that I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of opportunity presenting myself, I was like, I don't care. I'm gonna make it happen no matter what I have to do. But I felt like the combine went really well, and like I felt like I showed up and did as well as I possibly could, and then got accepted onto the show. So it's just kind of unfolded from there, and I've been so grateful along the way for everyone that kind of has helped to tell my story. Everyone's been very, what's the right word? I guess maybe this isn't necessarily what I want to, but like they've been very gentle and caring about wanting to tell my story the right way, because they know this is an athletic and competitive show, but I think this has also been something that everyone perceives as an opportunity for trans athletes to kind of step into the limelight a little bit and be represented. And at the end of the day, I think that's kind of the biggest win-win out of all of this, is not only the chance to just compete again, and since it's been so long since I've even been in that kind of atmosphere, but also just to hopefully be somewhat of a pioneer as to representing trans athletes in this kind of arena, basically, because I can't really think of any other trans athletes that's been represented in this way. So yeah, I think all in all, that's kind of how things unfolded, and then where we're sitting right now with it. And I'm still just kind of my anxiety and my nervousness is still up. I have to wait for a little longer until they air my episode.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man,
just waiting for it.
Just waiting for it. So until then, my nerves will be pretty high.
Yeah, I bet. Just waiting for it to come out. But I'm super excited to see your episode, of course. And I love, Mitch, that what you're doing is, of course, you did this because you have that competitive drive, and you wanted to be on this show and see what you could do. But moreover, it's like you said, it's this platform, and now you're using it to help and encourage and be there for others. So it's more than just you. It's more than just about you, and it's because you've made it then more than just about you. You're using it as a platform to further that and to help and encourage others. And I think it's what it's all about, right? I mean, the Titan Games and these incredible people that are coming together to compete and also rally around and support each other, but it's to help and support people who they may never have even met yet. So you might be reaching someone you've never met or might not ever meet, but they're being touched by your story simply because you're putting yourself out there.
Absolutely. And that's what matters most to me by far.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love that you're using your platform in that way for good. And so, Mitch, for you, of course, the Titan Games was created by The Rock. And I just wonder if you have any recollection of maybe when you even became aware of who he was, either when you were growing up or when he later in life, when he was in his movies. I just wonder when you became aware of who he was.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I certainly can't pinpoint it because I've been aware of The Rock, for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
I think it's also one of those things too, because if you grow up being in the sports world, even though I wasn't necessarily a wrestling fan, I mean, I knew who The Rock was because I watched SportsCenter all the time.
Right.
Even, and his name's being thrown out there regardless all the time through football and then through wrestling and all that. So, yeah, I mean, I've known who he was, I would say, just pretty much my whole life. So, yeah, the added bonus to all of this, with it being his show, him creating it, him being such a huge part of it, and then as well as him being a part of the decision making and bringing me onto the show. I mean, what a dream come true.
Really, I love that. It's amazing. Growing up watching him, and then truly a dream come true that you get to step on the stage and compete with something that he created, and it's this platform that you get to now further yourself and further to help others. And so, Mitch, like you said, getting around these people that have this similar goal, and they're there to encourage others, and you as well, on this same platform. Having this experience coming off of the Titan Games, what would you say is your definition of a Titan?
I would say, I remember being kind of asked a similar question while we were there interviewing.
Yeah.
For me, obviously, it does come from a more personal perspective, but I think being a Titan not only represents those who are physically strong, obviously, but really that mental and emotional toughness. And, somebody who can embody that, the mental and emotional aspect of being tough, having going through many of life's challenges and overcoming them, and not only overcoming, but excelling afterwards, and utilizing the challenges to propel themselves forward. To me, that's what I think of when I think of the word Titan. It's just this embodiment of not only being physically strong, like, yeah, I'm in shape. I can lift heavy weights, or I'm a great athlete, or what have you, because obviously the physical strength and abilities come in many forms as well. But just somebody who takes life's challenges and utilizes them, like really uses them to propel forward, to grow and to learn from those challenges, and to know that those challenges are actually the tools at which you do improve and get better. And obviously that comes from a lot of that personal perspective, just from a lot of what I've been through. It's, for so long in my life, it was like, man, why is life so hard? All these challenges are being thrown at me. I don't know if I can take them all on. And then after overcoming them and looking back in retrospect, it's understanding, wow, I would never have gotten here without those challenges. I never would have become the stronger person, the more mentally and emotionally tough person that I am now, where the certain challenges come my way and it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
been there, done that. I don't really demonize those challenges anymore. I see them as learning opportunities, and I didn't used to see it that way before. So, when I see and hear Titan, that's really what I feel within me, and how I feel like I represented myself as well as a Titan. And I certainly would apply that to everybody there. It's not just for me. I know everyone there really represents that same essence of having gone through a lot in their lives, and not only are they great athletes, but they're really, really strong, great people. So, for me, that's how I would define it.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on something really important. Like you said, you've gone through so much and have come up against so many obstacles, as has so many people, or everyone who were contestants on this, the Titan Games. But of course, it's a lot about all the obstacles that you overcome, but it's about the perspective that you have. So like you said, you could have let them kind of derail you and let you stay bitter, but you didn't. You had to actively choose, no, I'm going to choose that I'm learning from these opportunities, and I'm learning from these things that I've overcome as to how to better prepare myself for the next obstacles that that might block my path.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, Mitch, for you, after your show airs, your episode airs, and the anxiety can finally leave you, what's next for you? What do you have your sights set on?
That's a great question. Well, obviously, I'm kind of, I'm definitely trying to keep things open in terms of, what the show will bring about. I'm hoping that more opportunities will present themselves just from the show itself.
Yeah.
But I'm also been working on, so I actually do have my master's degree in exercise science, and I'm a certified exercise physiologist. So, my passion has certainly been in the field of athletics, specifically towards training as well as nutrition. And so I've actually been working on opening up here in Alaska, just like a small gym / personal training studio, and to actually introduce myself back into this field of training. Because there was a time back in Colorado where I was a personal trainer for a chain gym.
Okay.
Which was a really good experience, but I wanted to do something on my own, something that I could create and manage myself. And so I kind of utilize that experience to get an idea of how things work in that field. But so I've been working on opening up that gym. I'm still kind of it's in the building phases right now.
Yeah.
But, I'm hoping to utilize that, but the show, the opportunities that come from the show, and then as well as my education to move back into this. I still feel like I'll be involved with security in some ways.
Yeah.
But this is kind of, I feel like the right time in my life to get back into what really my passion is. And I'm very, I've been very passionate about sports, but I actually am extremely passionate about like health, fitness, and nutrition. So I've been for many years now, I've been passionate about helping people improve their health and their overall wellness, because it's also been something that's played an important role in my life, and how much just being healthy. I just feel like it's such an important thing that I think we all should should prioritize, and I would love to inspire people to do that for themselves as well. So hopefully the direction continues, and I can just build on it, and that will be something that is like, full on a part of my life, and that I'm really active in. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Well, that's great. I mean, I love hearing that, being able to pursue your passion and having a vision of, okay, I'm going to use this opportunity that I was given to be on the Titan Games to further my platform, to, of course, encourage others, but then to directly impact people in this, catapulting you into opening this business that you envision for yourself. And so, Mitch, with that, I love what you said too about, of course, having this passion to help people in the health and fitness world. Will there be a specific component about basketball? Will you coach athletes specifically in that sport, or is it really just overall health and wellness and fitness?
That's a great question. So I actually have in the past done some coaching. Mostly what I did was private coaching.
Okay.
And I have considered to get back into that, but at the same time, I don't necessarily feel as drawn to that anymore, just because so much of my mindset and perspective has changed, even when it comes to sports and basketball.
Yeah.
One of the things that actually kind of has shifted pretty significantly since I've played and moved away even from coaching itself is just, I see a lot of kids nowadays kind of doing what I did, in terms of where sports just kind of becomes their entire life. And I'm not one that's out to criticize anybody, or, because I think anyone and everyone should pursue what they want to pursue and do it in their own way. I mean, we all have our own paths to follow, and that's, everyone's path is equally important. We have our own obstacles to overcome, our own things to learn and grow from and pursue. But at the same time, when I think back to what I experienced, and again, this doesn't mean it happens for everybody, but when I lost basketball, when I had to walk away and I didn't know who I was, of course, a part of me was frustrated with that, in terms of, why wasn't I really cultivating more beyond that for myself? Why wasn't I learning how to just be an adult and be responsible, and to explore different things in my life, to figure out what I wanted to do long term, or who I wanted to be. And that's actually one thing that's played into just moving away from coaching, is because I know I can go into it and do my best to teach kids that there is more to life than just basketball, but it's hard. It's not just me that's in their ear telling them certain things. So I've kind of wanted to more so go into an area where, I believe that the general area of like health and wellness, fitness and nutrition, kind of impacts people on a more broad perspective, if that makes sense, rather than something really focused as like being a basketball coach. Because,
Yeah.
I would love to be able to teach kids that there's more to life than just basketball. But at the same time, the world of basketball requires a lot of investment.
Yeah.
So there's kind of this, it's kind of like a double-edged sword kind of thing. So it's been difficult for me to have that desire to really get back into it. But in terms of approaching just health and wellness in general, I'm like, I feel like there's something here for me to really help people and impact even a larger a larger number of people, rather than just a few that want to play basketball for a time period. Because again, with basketball, it comes to an end regardless.
Yeah.
But your health is for your life, and so those kind of perspectives have persuaded me to be more passionate, and then to kind of pursue this field even over basketball, even regardless of how much I let you. Because to this day, I can't really play anymore. I haven't been coaching in a long time, and I still love basketball.
Yeah.
But my desire, my passion really has just moved into this more general wellness area for a lot of those reasons. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. But yeah, that's just kind of where I find myself these days.
Yeah, and of course that makes complete sense, wanting to help more people, and so casting that wider net. And of course, that's not to say that maybe there is a current or former basketball player in your midst that just by being you, leading in the way that you do, coaching in the way that you do, guiding people in the way that you do, you will positively impact them in a way that maybe it's not even directly related to basketball or the sport that they left behind, but it's just the way that you carry yourself because of your own experiences in past. You might, positively impact them in that way because you did cast that net of wanting to help and influence and encourage through health, wellness, and nutrition in that general way. Yeah. And so Mitch, now looking forward, and I love that, having that aspiration in the works and looking forward to encouraging and helping, using this platform really to catapult you forward and help people in so many different arenas. And reflecting back, knowing too, like you said, you've overcome so many obstacles, you've achieved so much through basketball and through your own personal transitions and everything you've done. So I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. I'm hoping that, I guess just kind of touching on what we've somewhat already talked about, is I just hope to inspire, regardless of any outcome. I just hope that people utilize this experience, not even just to look to me as an individual, but as a way to open things up, obviously specifically for trans athletes. But even in a broader sense, for people to just continually to open their minds up to, the diversity that we are as human beings. We all express ourselves very differently. We all have that unique way of expressing themselves, and I think our society is definitely moving towards that more general acceptance of just, loving people for who they are. But there's definitely still obstacles with that and challenges that many people like me still face. So at the end of the day, I'm hoping just to be, I do hope to be an inspiration, but just kind of, I would feel even more honored that if this turns out to be something that pioneers a way for trans athletes to be more represented, to be more accepted, and then just to inspire people to just love people unconditionally, let them express themselves, and to embrace everyone for who they are. At the end of the day, I think that's kind of what this whole opportunity speaks to, and hope that, again, whatever the outcome that maybe, if somebody thinks of my name, that's kind of what it leads into. So nothing would mean more to me than that in terms of being remembered for as a Titan.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's installment of the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. To learn more about each of these Titan athletes, be sure to check out their information in the links in my show notes. Furthermore, to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective, be sure to subscribe to the Keep Moving Forward YouTube channel and follow along on social media, also available in the show notes. As the creator of the Titan Games, Mr. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says, "Titans aren't born, they're made." And I hope today's story helped you realize all that you are capable of becoming if you put in that hard work and just keep moving forward.